Now, in this two-way table, you see we're analysing the Year 8 and Year 9 students and also the girls and boys within those years. And a two-way table allows you to analyse two different things within the same table. Now, important things to notice is how we have the total row at the bottom and the total column at the end of the table, and that those totals must always add to the grand total, which in this case is 207, which of course represents how many students there are altogether. Okay, so let's look at one of our two-way tables here that needs some filling in. It tells us here that the following two-way table gives information on the newspapers read by men and women. It wants us to fill in the missing values and then write the probability of selecting a woman who reads the Times newspaper. Now you see they've already given us certain bits of information in the table. For example, that 23 men read the Sun, 21 men read the Times. And in terms of the women, that 13 women read the Telegraph and 35 women were asked altogether what papers they read. And then if you look at the totals line on the bottom of the table, you see they've given us that 35 people read the Times newspaper and 25 people read the Telegraph. Now, just with those numbers that they've given us, we're now able to work out all the missing values in this table. Now, you won't necessarily be able to work out a particular one straight away. You might need to wait until you've got some more numbers in the table. So if we look at our table, one of the first ones we can work out is the number of men who read the Telegraph, because it shows us in the table that 13 women read the Telegraph and 25 people altogether read the Telegraph. So therefore, quite simply, the number of men who read the Telegraph would be 12. Likewise, if we look at the Times column of the table, it tells us that 35 people read the Times in total, 21 of which were men. So that means 14 women must read the Times. All these are just simple subtractions. Once we've got those two values now, it then becomes a little bit easier to work out some of the others. Out of the 35 women asked, 13 read the Telegraph, 14 read the Times as we just worked out. So therefore, by subtracting those from 35, 8 women read the Sun. Now if we look again at our Sun column, 23 men read the Sun, and we've just worked out that 8 women read the Sun, which means in total the number of Sun readers was 31. So we've now filled in just about everything except for our total number of men down the end, which if we look is now just going to be 23 plus 21 plus 12 to give us an answer of 56. And then our final box to fill in is our grand total. And remember, that needs to be the same along the total row and the total column down the end. And if we look, 56 add 35 gives us an answer of 91, and so does 31 add 35 add 25. And it's important to check that that row and that column both give you the same total. Now the final part of the question, don't forget, asks us to write down the probability of selecting a woman who reads the Times. Now if we look at the table, you can see there were 14 women who read the Times out of the 91 in total. So quite simply, the probability of finding a woman who reads the Times is 14 out of 91.